Move on to our second training today and the fourth and final training in this series. Take action, fostering policymaker relationships and inspiring action. Here's some session goals again, always good to level set. We're going to track and engage on legislation and agency rulemaking, prepare and deliver effective testimony, build and sustain policymaker relationships, identify real opportunities to engage, and take meaningful advocacy steps with confidence. These are all goals of these learnings. Looks like my picture is a little fuzzy there, but there are two major pathways for influencing policy, and we'll talk about those on the next slide. But why policymaker relationships matter. Advocacy is a long game. Takes a long time to do that education, do that outreach, and it may be years or more. Relationships drive policy outcomes. Policymakers rely on trusted messengers, as we talked about in the last session, and consistent engagement builds credibility. And your expertise really fills critical gaps in understanding. So putting together those connections of things that happen on the ground that people just see as it's happening. And so I know there was some requests in how to set up a lawmaker meeting earlier. The best way is to call their office and ask for their scheduler or their environmental staff if they have them. Ask for their email and invite them directly to a meeting. If you're asking for the scheduler, you're usually going to ask for the lawmaker. And again, these offices might not have a scheduler. Sometimes they have limited staff if you're working on different levels of government. But generally, calling the office, asking for the best contact is the way to go. And then reaching out via email to set up a meeting is effective. That can be in person or virtual. And if you don't hear back, bug them. Bug them. These people should be, responding relatively quickly, but it's okay to bug them. They got a lot going on, and what you have to say is important. Leave behinds are important as well. So they should be one page. Again, brevity or virtual. These days, the paper sometimes gets lost, and actually emailing and a follow-up with a virtual link to a handout is helpful. And include at least problem information. So again, what's that context? And then also the district relevant impacts. So how does this relate to you? Why am I here talking to you? And your organization's contacts. So if this hits them, they don't quite have the notes or a card that you've left behind, they have your information to reach back out to you. It's really important. And other impactful written forms of communication to legislators is emailing articles of success. So there's a lot that you see in the media of this restoration project was done, or these folks got together and did this in their community. Rise that up to your lawmakers and show these are some successes. This is what we could keep accomplishing if we keep up this good work. Project videos, like we talked about in the last session, always thank yous are good, tagged with an ask for continued needs. So if there's something great you see a lawmaker does, thank them for that, but say, hey, let's keep going further. Sign-on letters, so generally you're not having the lawmaker sign on to them, but if there's a cause to rally around, you have multiple organizations that agree, you can write up a letter and have who you want signed on to it, and then elevate that to them. So then it's a a group message, and it's a written form of communication where we're all on the same page, and this is what we're asking of you, or this is what we're rallying around. And there's also more, but these are the preferred ones. I don't know if anybody has any other ways they communicate with lawmakers and share. Here's another reflection prompt. Think of one policymaker whose decisions affect your work, and keep that in mind through today's session. What's going on? Maybe I'm losing some Wi-Fi here, but my picture's a little fuzzy. But like I said, there are two major pathways for influencing policy: legislation and administrative rules. Legislation sets direction, like for example, I have listed on the next slide House Bill 307, which is a lead and service line replacement bill, or the H2 Ohio budget. And then rules determine how laws are implemented. Provides timelines, enforcement, definitions, and funding distribution for legislation. And both matter, and both offer opportunities for engagement. So where to track legislation? To stay informed, you need to know where to look. And at the state level, the Ohio Legislature website lists bills, hearings, and committee schedules. Agencies like Ohio EPA, ODNR, and ODA post rulemaking updates and comment periods on their website as well. And at the federal level, Congress.gov and the Federal Register are the best tools. And of course, OEC provides action alerts, summaries, and templates to make these easier, and other organizations do as well. Because these are usually long processes for bills and rules. I mean, they can take up to a year or more. They go through the whole cycle we'll look through. So, you know, starting with where to find them, and then there's an engagement process where other folks are usually ahead of the game, can provide materials for you. So, there's also, you know, you can watch the committee live streams, so you can really keep up to date in following the banter on different bills, and you know who's really supporting or who's questioning, who push. But often that takes a lot more time. And what else? Yeah, I think I've listed everything here. Policy briefings, coalitions often provide those. So I was gonna share an update from the club meeting. In my legislator update I do, it's going to be a written one and follow up this meeting, but a lot of that I've gotten from a policy briefing. Good. I think I might need to pull up my other document here that's off Wi-Fi. Just don't get the cool transitions. Here we go. So these are just visual examples of what I've walked through. Here's the House Bill 507. You can see on the legislator website who is sponsoring it. You can also see co-sponsors. That isn't listed here. You can see where it's at, if it's introduced in the Senate. Actually, this is a different bill, not 507. And then as it moves through, when to engage, who to engage. And again, this, you know, may take several assemblies to go through the whole process. And then this is an example here of agency rule comments and where to plug in. There's early stakeholder outreach, which you know, often has the most influence in some ways, but sometimes you aren't given a lot about the rule at that stage, so it's more of a general comment you can provide agencies. At the interested party review stage, which can take a year or several months or longer, it depends, then you're really given a rule from the agency and pretty in-depth information to comment on. So right now, these water quality standard anti-degradation rules are up, and this is through Ohio EPA Division of Surface Water, which is where I usually pay most of my attention to on what rules are coming out and what affect our work. And they have timelines, generally 60 days to comment. And then it goes into proposed rule, and that's also listed here. So agencies do a great job, and also legislator does a great job in keeping these websites updated. Yeah.
Is there, this is for a state example, is there a federal example that also shows you that timeline is really awesome, like in terms of seeing where things are? And I'm always like not quite sure sometimes in the federal system where they are. Is there an analogous one?
Yeah, they don't do as good of a job on that level, unfortunately. I think it's a little more variable. They don't have quite all the steps. I think maybe it shows when it's introduced, and then what committee it's in, and then when it goes to the Senate. And so there is a lot less clarity, but usually congress.gov, or if you sort of Google that bill, or if you don't even know the bill number, looking at the Federal Register is helpful, or contacting your lawmakers and asking them for more information too. Okay, so understanding the process. This full picture here. Let's quickly walk through the process. We walked through this several trainings ago, but this is how legislation is drafted and ultimately passed or not. A bill is introduced, it's assigned to a committee, and then it goes through hearing and amendments before reaching the floor. And so there's different areas that's best to engage. When an idea is born, it's good to have direct meetings with officials or staff to be a part of that legislation making, make sure it's considering everything. And then you want to do press engagement when it moves into a committee. So you want to get the public talking about it, to be engaging themselves. And there's more targets when it's in committee, because you can look at which legislators are in that committee and go and talk to them, because they're the ones handling the bill. Then there's floor debate. You want to be doing letters and phone calls. Maybe there's a last minute, thing you can say that the lawmaker will take to the floor and push for that effort for you. And then it goes through some more debate here. You want to be doing social media. You want to be doing testimony when they offer that. When it's in committee, it's usually very limited time. There's opposition testimony, or there's testimony for the bill. And then once it goes through both chambers, the House and the Senate, at the state level, it'll go to the governor, and they can veto or not veto, and then it'll become a bill. Any questions, sir? And then rulemaking follows a similar pattern. There's a draft rule, there's public comment period, there's revisions and adoption. And knowing where you are in the process helps you choose the right action and the right time to take. So there may be, you're doing a group comment, and bringing in different experts at different times is helpful. Here's some examples of legislation rulemaking. I've named some of these examples previously, but House Bill 307 would require replacing all lead service lines in 15 years, and it's critical for public health. H2 Ohio funding was cut by 40% in the last budget, and that affects wetlands, nutrient reduction, and drinking water. And at the federal level, there's been attempts to revoke the endangerment findings and would undermine climate action. And these are active opportunities where your voice matters. And I just put up some examples of a rule comment that we've done. So this one we had multiple organizations. It looks like it was usually put at the top, interested party review, and that's when we brought in others. And it can be, just a simple intro about your organizations, why you're commenting on it, and then jump right in. Okay, number one priority, Ohio's implementation rules should protect recreational drinking waters, both in Ohio and downstream. And then we go on to give some context of, where the rule isn't doing that and where it could. And then it's usually sent via email. There's some clear instructions on the comment headline on the agency website and where to submit it. It's usually all virtual now. 2 examples there. Like I named, there was the anti-degradation rule. I think their closing is May 29th, but don't quote me, I may have a different date in my head. And then there's the SNP rule, which I just heavily engaged with some other organizations, and that's since closed, but affects nutrients as well. And OEC uses action alerts to flag urgent opportunities, hearings, comment periods, amendments, and votes. These alerts give you talking points and a template so you can act quickly. When you respond, you amplify the collective voice of advocates across the state. And so we often send this to our membership, but it's really helpful for partners too. And this is an example. Tell your regulators, don't let First Energy weaken our grid reliability standards. And this is effective in getting your message out as well as giving you a starting point. So we usually have a list of bullets of what we think the action should be. Maybe you don't agree with those, maybe you take at least the knowledge from it and then write your own action language and send that in. And where you respond to this action alert, there's usually a link that'll bring you to where to write it. Or maybe we're collecting all of the responses and we're going to send them in on a specific thing we're taking action on. So your role is to really respond, share, and encourage your networks to participate. So you can always reshare these. So what is testimony and why does it matter? Written testimony is submitted electronically. It becomes part of the public record, and it's often read by staff and referenced later. So there's written testimony and verbal testimony. These are only accepted at a specific time, so it's important to either again be plugged into organizations that know when these times are, or to be following them yourself, because it is a very small window. But they do want to hear from anyone and everyone. Usually it's best to hear from people who have expertise on what the specific topic is. So if you don't, again, plugging in partners that do, or drawing those correlation, but anyone can submit it, anyone can deliver it. And if you have to deliver it at the State House or in front of Congress in DC. And so if you can't make it there, because that's ultimately the most effective is verbal, then written testimony is just as fine as well. And so you'll deliver that in front of a committee. There's usually a question and answer portion, which is the hot seat period. Sometimes you'll get some hardballs, or it'll really address what the committee is most interested in knowing from you about to help make changes to the bill or proceed or deny it. And it builds personal relationships with lawmakers too. When you're there in front of them, talking about an issue, then it's a good place to start too. And it can be submitted online. Again, the State House has a great way of tracking that. Congress doesn't as much, but you can still find it. Reach out to organizations like ours if you can't find it. And you will submit it via a portal. Usually it has to be submitted 24 hours before the hearing. And then if you're gonna go deliver it, you'll go deliver it. If not, you probably won't hear back from it, but you'll know they're reading it. And why it matters, committees really rely on the subject matter of experts. There's more capacity, they have tons of bills and issues they're engaging on, and when you come in and talk about this one issue and really nail it home and say, you know what you're talking about, that's really helpful for them to rely on. And then local stories influence decision making, as we talked about. And lawmakers often cite testimony in debate, and so you could provide a stat or part of an issue that they then raise further, and that's really helpful too. And it creates accountability and transparency, so it's a time for the public to go and engage, really. And it helps shape amendments and funding decisions. So there may be things that they aren't thinking about with this bill, and suddenly you've drawn light to it. Any questions? Move right along. Writing engaging testimony. So you want to use a simple structure. You want to introduce yourself, your role, your connection to the district if you have one. State your position. Do you support it? Do you oppose it? Are you just here to provide informational context? Sometimes people are requested to come give in testimony because they're an outside opinion. Explain the issue in plain language. If you oppose it, what are you opposing about it? If you support it, maybe there's not an issue, but maybe there's something to drive home and why this should keep moving. Share a story using that clear framework. There often isn't a time limit on testimony, but still keeping that brevity is important. Provide data from your documents. Oh wait, that was a little piece of mine. Well, from my work, HABs, lead lines, and H2 Ohio impacts are examples. And then make that clear ask again, and thank the committee for letting you be there. And then there's some H2 Ohio data examples. These are good for them to take back and show successes if it's part of an H2 Ohio bill you're giving testimony on. We'll see for an example. In talking to lawmakers, you want to be concise, connect to their district, use plain language, bring solutions, and follow up. I think that follow-up piece is important because, again, building relationships is important to make action occur, not just that one or two follow-ups or one or two touch bases. And then don't assume that they know the issue. They have a lot of issues they're engaging on. And don't overwhelm with jargon, break it down. And don't attack or blame, that gets nothing done. You need to go in there level-headed and really, be strategic about working out what the issue is, and know that other people are pushing for the opposite side you are. And don't forget to make an ask. Okay, well, any questions? Moved through that quickly in the sake of time, but wanted to be able to do our activity. Alright. Well, we are going to break out into groups again, and this time we're going to move around the room a little bit more. And we're going to practice being an advocate, and we're going to pretend that the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative needs reauthorized and you're acting on it. It isn't such a pretend issue, it is a current issue, but let's pretend now you are an advocacy team responsible for influencing this policy. And so I'm going to have different stages of the bill that we've seen, the process around the room. And there's going to be a couple actions that you can take. They're the same actions, but they're going to be at each station. And you're going to call out as a group what would be best to take at each part of the bill. So we'll pretend, right here's one in front of me that I'll have up, implementation and rulemaking. So that'll be, after the bill is passed, maybe how this is going to be funded. You're going to decide between these actions: submit written testimony, deliver verbal testimony, meet with the legislator, request an amendment. There's a couple actions here that you're going to name would be most effective. Does that make sense to everyone? So we'll have people move through each station. Again, we can do group by table, or you can group off how you'd like. And I'll put one, maybe over here, and then kind of on those chairs back there on this table, and then one over here. I think I have 4 stations, and maybe this group can go start over here. You guys can start there, start there, start there. We'll give about 5 minutes or so, and we'll have everybody then move to the next station. Great. I'll lay these out.